but with the familiar tools. Now, once we have the supervisor cluster, we have these things called supervisor namespaces. What does that mean, right? Well, again, if we think about this, right, we put these spheroid on our ESXi nodes, and we have our Kubernetes control plane running. This is a Kubernetes cluster. We just turned this vSphere cluster into a Kubernetes cluster. And like any other Kubernetes cluster, it has namespaces. And so we support a lot of additional object type or resource types. You can run things like vSphere pods and so on, right? And so with that, the idea of a name, what you have to make sure that you have security for within the namespace expands to cover all those things that we include. But that also means that we can take advantage of these additional capabilities, right? So like the vSphere pod service, for example, one of the biggest well-known vulnerabilities in Kubernetes is that if I have one Kubernetes cluster and I have different namespaces, unless I put in very, very, very cumbersome controls, you can between pods in the different environments, right? Or in different namespaces, access different services between different namespaces as a standard even. And so the vSphere pod service allows you to create pods that are mini virtual machines. And so they can run with even better performance than regular Kubernetes pods, but they have the full set, really full set of security controls around them that don't exist in standard Kubernetes, and as well as there's a lot of additional capabilities. And so we'll find with the supervisor namespace, it takes that nice concept of a namespace that really works great in Kubernetes, but extends it to both include all the different objects types that you can use in your vSphere environment, and it also takes advantage of all those additional services and capabilities that we have in the hypervisor and in vSphere to really create a namespace that can do a lot more, but is also inherently much more secure than what we think of typically in just a standard Kubernetes namespace. And so once you have your namespaces created, just like in Kubernetes, right? If you're just using a regular plain old Kubernetes cluster, you have to deploy things to a namespace. You don't specify a namespace, it deploys them to a default namespace. And so let's say in this case, we've created our namespaces here, 1, 2, and 3. And let's start with now deploying something.